what's happening, what's causing this unrest. The number of schools that have had to close, boarding schools over the weekend, is just increasing every day. Like we're saying, this morning, we expect some more parents will receive notices from their school saying, just to forestall any kind of issue, please, let's close the school. We want to understand what's been going on. And our guest is an organizer of the school's debates. So he says every day there's a school debate happening in some school somewhere. And so he's interacting with the learners on a daily basis. Okoth Opondo, civic educator, has been here before. He's a debates organizer and a coach. Karibu sana. You know the drill. We start with Felari's giving you the day's quote. Okay. And then we shall get to the conversation.
Karibu sana. Today's quote is courtesy of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and the quote reads, "The single story creates stereotypes, and the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete." How does that speak to you?
I think actually it captures the current situation in the country, because to me what I see it as the danger of just listening to one side of a story. And these are things that apply in our daily lives. Sometimes someone is coming to tell you, Latif did this to me, then you run. Or Bisha did this to me, then you run, and you believe in that without listening to the other side of the story. So for me, it's very important that you listen to both sides of the story, then as an individual, make your own judgment. Yeah.
And not just a judgment, but an better informed judgment, right? Hopefully it will be better informed.
We can only hope that it's better informed with all that information. Sometimes people might listen to all sides of the story and still
go there with a prejudice.
Side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm prejudiced. I mean, as I'm listening to you, I'm listening to you from this other side. I've already formed an opinion.
Yeah.
So I want you either to confirm this opinion. If you don't confirm the opinion, then you are the problem.
Yeah. Or I'm listening to you to tick a box.
Yeah.
I listened to both sides of the story. And I still end up at the same place.
And I still end up here.
Wow.
Let's start off, of course, by you tell us that you organize school debates. Tell us about that. What's that?
Yeah, so my name is Okoth Opondo. I run a program called Camp D Voices, and one of the biggest programs that we are currently running under that organization is called Tuko Fresh, which just allows us to go to different schools, touring schools and having conversation with students. So when we tour a school, of course, you're just trying to learn the culture of that school, but also by the end of the day, you are helping students by training debates, by organizing those student engagements. And I think one of the most recent one we did at Olympic High School in Kibra, but I think also the other one that was very vibrant, and I have to mention it because it's also going to be part of our conversation today, is the one that we did at Alliance High School, and that was just celebrating Alliance at 100, and even the kind of issue that came up from such kind of a powerful engagement. So for me, when we have these kind of engagements on a daily basis, what it gives you, it gives an opportunity to understand, to see, and just try to understand how students see things, how they feel about issues, how they are projecting their frustrations and everything. And probably that's why I'm also in this panel today. Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Let me begin, before we even get to the work, to what you hear and see when you're in these schools and when you're with these learners. Let me ask you for some Solomonic wisdom. Who are the two ladies that had come to Solomon saying, "Mtoto ni wangu"? I forget their names, but you know the story. And his test was, tumkate in half. When you look at what's happening in our schools today, what would be the drastic measure that would be wrong to take? I'm putting it in the sense that Solomon knew what he was doing when he says, cut the baby in half, kila mtu achukue nusu, we'll be happy. He knew what the reactions would mean, right? What's a move that government is likely to make that would be equivalent to that Solomonic wisdom?
At this particular time, if we start any games of blames, like the blame games, I think it is going to be totally disastrous. Because what we are facing currently is a problem that is coming from different corners. So the different stakeholders in education must be involved, and if you're to put blame on anyone, then definitely it's going to be a very huge problem, because again, to me, unrest are not things which are new to Kenya. These things have been happening. Only that now there's something that is happening different that needs to be addressed at this particular moment. So use of any force or use of any blame or even trying to push certain people to a corner to condemn maybe how people are expressing this is going to be a totally wrong move made by the government.
I like that one. Saying ni wazazi wameshindwa, saying oh ni walimu, the learners are indisciplined, any of that. Okay.
It's a hot potato that we are throwing to whoever decides to catch it. If you catch it, it's your problem. Deal with it. In interactions, because you go into these institutions, not in capacity of a teacher, but you're an educator, meaning the barrier that students have, well, speaking to their teachers is not one that they have with you. They look at you as someone who they can actually speak to and probably even air, not their grievances, but also just open their minds for you to, engage with them in the different capacities. What do you see? What's the common thread that you see across the institutions that you go to that teachers are probably blind to?
So I think if we were to try to look at what has been, especially the past 2 weeks, some years back, we would say certain problems are associated with certain levels of schools. Maybe you would say these were problems of the districts or the county schools or the sub-county schools. But what is happening, you feel like students are all the same. They are all reasoning in a certain particular way. And it is just happening across because this is the first time we're even seeing some big names being involved in all the things that we're talking about here. So this tells you a lot. So what I understand that today's student in school is not the student of 1970s or 80s or 90s when our parents were brought up or when some of us maybe were brought up in the early 2000s and all that. Today's student is a very informed student. Every time we have engagement with them, they are thinking about the environment, they're thinking about their future, and they're also thinking on how to be involved in everyday's conversation. The first times that we started debates, you'd go to certain schools, like most of us in primary school, used to debate a teacher is better than a farmer, a lawyer is better than an engineer. These children no longer want to debate such kind of issues. These are students who want to debate real issues. If you go to some of these schools, they're talking about Iran, US war, and they're as interested like any other person outside here. They're talking about food security, they're talking about governance. So it is a generation that is very informed and is very interested to be part of conversation. And again, something about this generation that you really need to understand them. And I'm saying this also having in mind that understanding should then not be used as an excuse for misconduct. But I'm just saying that we need to understand where they are coming from and also how they are looking at issues. Some of us grew up in schools where, for even motivational speakers used to come to school and would tell us very useless things. And you just see all of us writing them down, I started with a power bank, now I own a bank. I started with these, the generation to tell such kind of thing because they'll question you. They'll try to challenge what you are saying. And sometimes it is seen as if they are difficult, but I don't think they're difficult. They're just different. And it's also up to the system and everyone to try to understand how to accommodate them because they are here to stay. And in fact, as generations grow, they're even becoming more and more complicated.
You're saying the children nowadays are different? What would make them different? I mean, they're children.
Eric, if someone was you, us like, wow.
You tell that to a children, no, they're like, what are you talking about?
You'd come to class and the moment, you just mention your name, you would start writing, he said he's Opondo, he's a motivational speaker. But these people don't care about that. They'll even ask you some of the things you are mentioning because they've already read them or you tell them some story that don't make sense. And you remember how people used to come to our schools and would tell us, I'm a very busy man and after this I'm heading to Brazil and all that. And they'll check it later to find out, did you actually go to Brazil? Then the next time when you come, they'll call you a liar. That's the kind of generation that we are dealing with. So even how they're looking at issues is totally different. So Eric, when I say that, I know some people might say that they are difficult. I do not think they are difficult. Maybe they are totally different because even look at a child before joining school today. Most of us, for example, at what time did we even learn to use remotes or even phones? Some of us, even after high school, that's when we got our first phones and even a computer. We were even doing computer packages after school. Today, a child, even before going to school, they already even know how, they can even read a name even without writing. They know from that this is mom calling, this is dad calling, without knowing even how to spell it. They know how to use, they know how to check things on Netflix and all. That's the kind of a generation that we are dealing with. And remember also, they are part of the larger society. And they are seeing what is happening outside here. And every time they see what is happening outside here, what are we teaching them? That every time we disagree, this is how we should always react. I totally condemn the idea of people burning schools and killing each other or destroying property. That is totally out of order. But also on the other side is that where are they learning some of these things from? Then we are transferring. Sometimes we also tend to transfer some of this burden to the schools, hoping that teachers, for example, like now the pressure that we are seeing in schools, with the 100% transition under the new curriculum, now you are realizing that teachers have to handle a lot. These teachers are also human beings. By the end of the day, they also have their own children to think about. Then the government said you can't do this to a child. The child is always right, A, B, C, D, you know, all these kind of things. So then it gets to a point where the teacher say, you know what, my job is to come to class, teach, and go back home. Right. So every time we have this conversation, these are the things that really come out, Eric.
Okay.
So why the people at the helm of our education sector, many of them are actually educators, right? Educationists who've been in the system for long. They have studied education, and they've studied how to pass on information. You know, the entire thing of how to manage learners and different stages of learners as they grow. What we are seeing now, yes, we have a more exposed learner by the time they are teenagers, right? Because we're talking about teenagers today. They're more exposed in terms of access to information. They're more exposed in the speed of communication amongst themselves and others, and so on and so forth. But the way they are expressing themselves is not new. School riots and demonstrations and, you know, going on the rampage and throwing stones and destroying your desks and your schools and your classrooms, and even in some extent burning schools, is not new. In the entire 60-year history as a country, you will find every so often there was a school that had this kind of skirmishes with students of the same age group.
Sure.
So there's some things that, yeah, there's a difference in terms of how the learner is today, but the expression is the same. I bet even the frustration, the causes for the expression has not changed, right? They'll talk about, we feel we are not being heard.
Sure.
We feel we are not getting some level of freedom. There's too much pressure. There is nobody who's helping us to manage this pressure, right? It's the same you'll hear today, I'm sure, and maybe you'll tell us. It's the same you'd have heard in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 90s, in the early part of this century. So where is the failure here?
Yeah.
This is the failure of those at the helm of education to actually have come up with solutions of how to handle teenagers.
On my side, I would say that while, yes, we can talk about the educators and the professionals being very educated, and we hope that they are understanding these issues, my problem will be that have they learned? Because if these things have kept on happening, in fact, it is very, very, very worrying that year after year, we have schools burning, and we always have students losing their lives in these kind of situations. To me, this is totally wrong, because also it on one side, it talks about just how prepared we are or how unprepared we are to tackling certain issues in schools, because school is a well-controlled environment, and I would expect that all the measures should always be in place to handle certain issues. Yes, and also understanding that we are dealing with a group of people who are very daring. I was a student once, and I think there's a time we had, it was also like a wave in the country, just after the post-election violence. And Latif, I have to be very honest, myself, I was accused among the people directly, partly involved in organizing the strike in school, but it's also because of sometimes how we become vocal in school about certain issues. Then even now when the investigations start and how the investigation, the whole process will look like. And also the other issue here is that when students feel that they do not really trust how the system of a school runs, then it becomes a very big problem. And I know this is one issue that schools are really finding difficult in handling right now, because one, teachers are doing their part. If you ask the teachers, if you go to any school in Kenya, they'll tell you how well they are working, and they believe that they're doing the right things. The students also on the other side also believe that, we are not being heard. So sometimes you feel like it's a disconnect of generations, because, right now I've been reading the newspapers, and if you go to social media, what are parents saying? Kiboko irudishwe. Wakati wetu vitu kama hizo zilikuwa zinafanyika. Wakati kama huyu mtoto angekuwa shapelekwa kwa chief. But whose children are they? Why are they not taking them to the chiefs themselves? You see, now this whole burden, it only becomes a huge problem when it comes from school. But where are the students learning these characters from?
Hey, what you've said about the gap is incredibly true, and what you mentioned at the beginning, the level of information and enlightenment that these learners have, means that gap has widened. The gap has always been there. It's a listening gap essentially, and I think we've talked about how learners are looked at just like an ornament, something to be seen, not to be heard, something to be controlled. But now with the amount of access to information, with the internet, with the kind of generation you're dealing with, that gap is now times 4, times 5, times 6 wider. And then what you've also mentioned about like the psyche that they go into it with, whether it's the learners or the educators. But now when we're doing like a fix, or trying to look for a fix, everyone wants to begin from what they know as opposed to what the facts are. So I don't know how we'll inform them, or how we can put it across that these are the facts. And we'll take a short break, but when we come back, tell me about now the educators, what it takes to get through to them. Because we were saying, learners ni vichwangumu, nini. In my opinion, I'll be quite honest, vichwangumu hapa ni the educators, including PSB Talk, who is like, we will not change the school calendar because of 80 schools. Ni kwa tu kichwangumu hata yeye. But you expect the other side to listen. Let's take a short break, but when we come back, we'll talk about the fix and how to deal with unrest in schools, but more so how to essentially learn to change our education system to be learner-centered as opposed to a near-prison system. We'll be right back after this.
Basic Abisa. We continue our conversation about the schools unrest. Where is the breakdown? Is it a communication breakdown? We have Okoth Opondo, who is a civic educator, debates organizer, and coach. We have him in the studio. We are now joined on the line by Busolo Lusweti, who is the vice chairman of KUPPET in Bungoma. That's KUPPET is the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers. They're the ones who are dealing with these high schoolers, right? Mwalimu Busolo, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Now, the debate countrywide. People are just trying to understand where is the failure. And I can imagine as the leader of KUPPET, you're among the senior leaders in our schools. What's your reading of this? Is it a breakdown in communication between learners and the teachers and the school administrations?
Yes. When I look at what is going on, I look at a generation breakdown where we have learners that want to be engaged mostly in the running of the school. They want to be involved in things, in decision making. But sometimes you find an administration that is probably adamant. It wants to strictly follow the laws and the procedures. And that is what is leading in strikes in most of our schools.
So what is this? Because if you look at our law, even our law recognizes that there will be like a tripartite management. There will be the administration, there will be the board of management, there will be the parents association, and they'll also add in the voice of the learners in trying to interact with the learners. Are we saying that these adults are all of them refusing to listen to the learners, or they don't recognize the need of listening to the learners?
They do recognize, but something else that brings in a lot of problems is overcrowding of the schools. When you look at most of the schools that are striking, they belong in a category C2 and C1. That is the extra county schools and the national schools.
Yes.
In most cases, you have seen even national schools closing down for the past time.
Yeah.
This one I attribute to mostly grade 10 admission of this year. When you look at this grade 10 admission, you'll find that C4 schools, that is the sub-county, and C3 schools received the least number of students as compared to C1, that is the nationals, and C4. And C3 rather, C2 rather, the extra county ones. You find that a school that is supposed to have like say 450 students to 500 has 800 or 900. So these new students that are coming in grade 10, they have a different culture as compared to the 844 ones that have been in this school. So, and the space is also limited. It's trained in a way that maybe they are taking a long time on queues, accessing social amenities become a problem. There is that general fatigue. And the moment they hear that one school has gone on strike, it encourages them. You find that we have even some schools in the Bungoma here where boys who are seen are saying that if National School A has strike and they have gone home, how can we be in school?
So what I'm not understanding, Busolo, what are you saying? Are you saying grade 10s are responsible for this?
No,
Grade
really responsible,
10s
but
have come with a
when you look
different
at the
culture, and
population.
so. Please explain.
Yes, when you look at the population, the numbers are a little bit too high vis-a-vis the human resource that is there. So you'll find that in the evening, when the students stay, they are in the dormitory, there are so many, when they are planning something, you cannot squarely blame the teachers because probably maybe they are not there. But when you look at ESC, it does not provide an extra allowance to be able to encourage even more teachers to be in school to do monitoring. So the fewer teachers, when you look at this strike, mostly they do happen at night. So you have so many students in the dormitory, and maybe you get like there are only 4 teachers on the compound. So before maybe they are able to sniff out something has already happened. So like the population that has increased because of the higher grade 10 admission in some of these schools could be a contributing factor also.
Okay, thanks, Busolo. We'll come back to you in just a minute, but I want to get Okoth's view on this as well, because I hear what you're saying about the numbers, and it's not a new problem. That our schools have been overcrowded has been a fact since I don't know, even before free primary education and then secondary education became a lot more affordable. But what he's saying about the fact that these learners want to be involved in the running of the schools as well. They want to be part and parcel of it. But the administration is not quite ready. The administration thinks, we have rules, we have structures that are set in stone. Is that part of the problem in your view?
I think it is what he's saying might be part right, because we have to agree that every time there's a transition, transition always comes with its own challenges.
Yes.
Even for a country, every time you're from one government to another government, there's usually like a period of some few months there that people are finding it very difficult. So when grade 10s are joining schools, of course, it came with a lot of confusion. I can tell you, even as late as last year, so many high school principals were sharing that they were never even involved in the conversations on how senior schools were going to look like. And I know these are kind of maybe something they find difficult to share, but let me say, because I speak to them a lot, but they say toward the very last minute, they were invited for conversation that, this is how a senior school needs to look like. So then you have students who are joining
You're
school
being told,
here.
not being involved in the
exactly.
the decision.
So if the school management, the leaders are feeling that way, so you can imagine what the other levels are going to feel.
Right.
Number 2, these so-called juniors, as they are joining the senior school, they are coming from an environment where they were the seniors. Then they're now joining this part where they're told, again, now you are like juniors. The monos, and they find it very difficult because now it is like a cultural shock in a way. Then also the feeling of inferiority, this other system, because they feel like either this student, I talk to them and they'll tell you, sometimes we feel like Form 3s and Form 4s are not as informed or as advanced as we are, and we can tell there are a lot of things that actually we can tell them. So that is another very big problem. But also what he's mentioning is very right. The pressure, because what I feel from students that the pressure is real, and the expectations also from different angles. The experience from your parents, expectations from the school, expectations from your friend. There's also the issue of the desire to be heard, which he has rightly mentioned. But also the other thing, let's also not run away from the concern about the future. Right. These students talk a lot about their future, and you hear them even asking you, okay, we are told to go to school, but there are no jobs, or we are told to go to school, and we are told that education is the key, but look at the people that we are admiring outside here. Somebody is making a joke. Sometimes you go around just interviewing politicians. How did you make it in life? Okay, they are rich, okay, fine. But do you have any of them who can always point out that I am rich because I came up with this innovation, or because I started this business, it is booming this way?
Nothing.
Also from the side of schools, what are now schools also feeling, I don't know whether Mr. Busolo will agree with that, the large responsibility that he's talking about. Population has increased, but nothing has been done actually to address it now. Then also the resource limitation. We're talking also about high expectations from parents,
Yes.
and then from the government. Expectations are so high on school.
Right.
Then lastly, rapidly changing student dynamics. It is crazy because today you talk to a student in this school, next year you go to the same school, you talk to the same, things are totally different, how they are viewing things.
Yeah.
And also just how the world keeps on changing. And either we change with it, or we remain back and keep blaming them.
That's true. I'm actually interested in hearing from you, Busolo, just as a response to our guest here, and also what would be the fix that the Ministry of Education and all stakeholders need to apply now so that students and the schools that have been closed can actually go back to learning, and we don't see a repeat of the same? What needs to fundamentally happen right now?
Okay. Maybe responding to the guest on his observation on grade 10, I would like to agree with him that grade 10s are very different when the way they look at things, and like they are in school, but they call these ones, they say these ones are high schoolers, and we are grade 10. The way they look at things, the way they want to, the way they are used to being, when you look at the lessons, what they are being taught about their rights, so the way they want to be taught is slightly different. And for us, senior school teachers, we are interacting with them for the first time, like we are learning on the job. So you'll find that one has brought in some problems. I think what the ministry is supposed to do, anytime we are having these strikes, the ministry always comes up with measures on the issue of involving students so much in running these schools. The last time we had the strikes, the ministry recommended that the school prefects should be elected, and we should have one prefect sitting on the board of management. That thing was implemented for some 2 or 3 years, and it died. In most schools, the current boards, they don't invite the head boy or the head girl to be part to give the views of the students. What the ministry is supposed to do is supposed to go back to that. Let the students sit in those boards. And then there should be a weekly program where the principal of an institution is meeting with the students. And I've seen that happening in schools that I've seen that. Like recently, yesterday I was talking to the principal of Lugulugas, and she was telling me that she met students 2 days ago, and the students had their views on how they wanted maybe how to run the systems, to do things in the school, as she discussed with them on the programs of the term, and the girls agreed that let us do this, let us just go for our term during the normal time, and the students are happy in school. So I will encourage principals to meet, and for the ministry, it has to come up with a policy on the number that the school should and must admit. That if a grade should not have more than 500 students for effective management. If we are having Form 4s, it should not be more than 500, even if it is an extra county or a national school. Not more than 500 Form 3s, and not more than 500 grade 10s. Then it should also look at the way of increasing the school management. You can have a principal who is not extremely effective, but if you have a deputy that gets some allowance, and we have senior teachers with strict roles, because a school that is boarding, it should have a boarding master who is known even to the government, that the boarding master of school A is this one. This one will ensure collective responsibility, because we are finding sometimes where maybe because the principal is uncooperative with the rest of the teaching staff, these students could just organize a strike, and the people know that the strike is being organized, and because the principal is uncooperative, we want to be dictatorial. Teachers say, watch it, let him fight or her fight his wars. And now you see the schools back.
Mwalimu, thank you very much for your contribution to this. And I mean, we know the Ministry of Education has ordered a fresh inspection of all schools countrywide. You know, the Kikombe says, wait for task force number 7. You know,
So ordered, so forth.
a new task force.
Yeah.
Asante sana Mwalimu. Just stay on the line. We may come back to you just for one of the or two closing remarks. Let me just sample some of the comments, because our fixers also are expressing themselves here on very many issues. Charles Nungo says, the truth is most kids likely than not copy adults. We expect them to be disciplined, while we, the adults, are totally indisciplined. Politicians throwing jabs at each other and the kids among the audience. Then he continues, we steal government funds and capitation has reached the schools or is inadequate. What do we expect? They know 500 million was found in houses, then it disappeared. Then the other day, 65 million shillings in another house. Our narcissistic nature doesn't allow us to accept the problem starts from home, the streets, leaders, etc. We are all indisciplined in one way or the other, and they learn fast. Reflection is paramount. Urban Safari seems to agree. He says, candidly speaking, what we have right now in Kenya is social degradation of morals and values, a true reflection of how our society behaves. Secondly, there's a disconnect in the system. One, the teachers are equipped mentally to handle the informed students. Are teachers equipped to handle the informed students? Number two, do we impact our kids with values to guide them through the system? Number three, how are we as a society behaving? Children are a reflection of how a society behaves. Are we saying that it's only Kenyan students who are wholly informed than the rest of East African students? Or is it that behavior is prevalent and domiciled in Kenya and not other EAC countries?
Think about how even which of the other East African countries under Mandamans, you know, it is within us.
It's coming from the whole of society.
From the whole of society.
This whole of society approach, not
Yeah.
the government, it's whole of government approach. The Kikombe agrees with what Okoth is saying. Students have cracked the code that the way to get your way is to protest. Dialogue appears to have failed. Look at finance bill. The kids are sending us a message. In Luo, we say the child who is wailing is not always stubborn. Sometimes the thorn is too deep, donge. The students are telling us, tumefinywa sana, using colonial ways to teach future freedom. How? Remember, you cannot unlock a smartphone using a tricycle padlock key. Budget is a statement of values. We appear to value education, but our actions speak colonial subjection. Tunajipoteza. He continues, I can almost bet on my career that the underlying seen but ignored monster in schools can be solved primarily with funding. Mtaona tu, kama uamini, ngojeeni task force number 7.
Number 7.
It'll come. If you doubt the idea of funding, when is the last time an international school went on the rampage? We'll thank the current students in public schools we'll thank them for the unrest, for the positive change that is about to come.
Only if the positive change comes. Okay, Okoth, I was going to... What I was asking actually in the last half hour, vichwa ngumu hapa ni nani? Is it educators and the ministry and that system, or the learners objectively? And who needs to listen?
I think both sides need to listen, because I'm a bit careful not even to shoot blame on any side, because as at this moment, we have to accept that there's a problem. And once you accept that there's a problem, they now start understanding from the root cause of what is causing this problem from the students, from the schools, from the government side, and even from just the larger society. What is happening that needs to be addressed? When you ask that, I just remember someone was saying, actually, if you look at the school, different schools, all the schools have their different reasons. So while experiences differ from school to school, for example, one thing that comes from every school is that you realize that many students are talking about the need fair treatment. They are talking about effective communication. They're talking about meaningful participation, just as he mentioned. Yeah. And this one, they are asking that can it be done through student leadership structures, and can it also be done in a way that they have confidence that it will be achieved. I can assure you that right now, even as we're speaking, there are teachers who are in total agreement of what is happening. If you just talk to them in their private space.
They support the students.
Yeah, they support the students. Because as we mentioned, there's what students are feeling, but also the pressure that schools are feeling, especially the issues of resources. When, for example, that parents are expecting to see developments in schools, right? But now look at it. What time does the ministry send capitation to school, for example? Sometimes I know of principals even tell that they go to their own pockets to reach out to go to their own pockets or reach out to friends to keep certain students in school, especially boarding schools within this capital city. But also, students will tell you that, you know what, our PE lessons have now been turned into sessions to continue the math sessions, our life skill, which the government introduced, the life skill session. Yeah. But again, ask yourself, why are teachers extending mathematics and chemistry sessions during life skill and PE? What is this pressure that must be achieved? That it is beyond the mental health of a student. And Michelle, just to mention something, I started by also mentioning Lions High School, and I told the Premier Kamau is a very good friend. Earlier this year, we had a very interesting conversation with the school just before Alliance at 100, and one thing that they picked as the theme for this year is mental health. And I asked him why. He said, well, it is okay that we are so happy producing students who are scoring A's and all that, but do we really care about how this student feels when he's alone? How this student is dealing with issues from home? Right. Kenya is always out of every 5 children you talk to, there's always one coming from a broken family. They'll always tell you, my dad is not there, my mom is not there, I'm coming from a home, my mom doesn't understand me. All this pressure is going to school. These children's mental health state is a big problem. So now here what we're talking about is that I think prevention to me is better than punishment. And I would just like to emphasize on that the most effective response to this is not what happens after the crisis, but what we are capable of detecting before it reaches the crisis point. To me, that is the most important thing to understand at the moment.
I agree.
We are all drinking from a hosepipe, from what I'm hearing. The institutions, the students, the teachers. And I've been sat here just listening to the Kupet Vice Chairperson that we still have on call, to yourself. And the discourse around this is there's no one applicable fix. It's a fix that has to run cut across, but also a mindset shift. So how do we even start applying this if the elements that ought to be agitating for this change are in denial, saying that this is a thing that a 33-point resolution is going to fix? No, it goes outside that 33-point resolution. Where do we start? Where do we start? Because it would be so blinded to think that the 33-point resolution, once applied, is going to be the end of the school fires and the unrest that we are seeing. It's going to take a different form. So where do we start addressing this matter? Because if we leave it to the powers that be, we know exactly how that is going to be carried out.
Right. We have to release actually Busolo and Okoth as well and get into the next hour of conversation. But thank you so much. Thank you, Okoth, for the wonderful work you're doing, engaging with students, with debating, being a civic educator in all your spaces. We appreciate you. And thank you to Busolo Lusweti, Vice Chair of Kupet in Bungoma County as well. We have to get into the next hour, but just as you were speaking, I feel like the lights flickered a little bit. And immediately I got flashbacks of Felaris's infamous 10,000 shilling token purchase. I'm sorry. Sorry to air you, fella. But I was like, wait, is she doing okay? Has she managed to find a way to spread them out? Where can she check how many she has left? And I looked it up and I found there's a new Kenya Power app that allows you to do exactly that. Tuangalie zimebaki ngapi, so that you can be doing 10K I don't know how many months it'll last you. I hope until the end of the year.
You know what? Since this story is not done, we'll keep track of that 10K until whenever it ends. But
Right.
what's this new app?
No, it's My Kenya Power app. And I think it's good for us to let our listeners and viewers know about it. And we'll, of course, come back in the next hour and tell you a little bit more. But essentially, new app. There's the old
Actually,
one.
not
My
app.
Power. There's an app as well.
USSD.
Zote Ziko.
Yes.
Zote
And
zinadu.
just make it even much easier.
Yeah.
You don't need credit, you don't need data, you don't need just USSD.
Yes.
And this makes it much easier for you to also sort it out.
True. And you can dial star 977 hash. 977 hash.
With
Evo 2.
immediate effect.
Oh, that's what she's doing. Aya. Well, let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Tony Gashoka about Rigathi Gachagua, Kalonzo Musyoka, and others. That's what it says. See Mimi nimesema and others. And of course, we'll talk about the political formations coming and the big ruling that is pending. We'll be right back.